Hearing that the Russians are reporting that Ukraine has now used these Atacms ballistic missiles. More on that later.
Yeah, it looks like an escalation is coming. Okay.
This morning, Ukraine fired U.S.-made missiles into Russia for the first time. That's according to officials in Moscow. The move comes just 2 days after President Biden gave Ukraine permission.
And a major escalation on the 1,000th day of the war. The attack comes just 2 days after the Biden administration gave Ukraine the green light to use the weapons against targets inside Russia. The White House policy change comes after North Korean troops were deployed to help drive Ukrainian soldiers out of Russia's Kursk border region. Overnight, Russian President Putin signed a new doctrine saying any major aerial attack against Russia could prompt reprisals with nuclear weapons. A spokesperson for Putin says this adds fuel to the fire.
This news comes a few hours after Russian President Vladimir Putin said the country has a right to respond to an attack like this one with nuclear weapons.
Putin has a new warning for the United States after President Biden authorized Ukraine to use long-range missiles supplied by the U.S. to strike inside Russia.
The Russian anti-missile system apparently downed 5 out of 6 of these missiles. And the Russian Defense Ministry says Ukraine hit Russia with these missiles.
We are following breaking news at this hour. I wanted to share this social media post from the Associated Press saying that President Joe Biden has, for the first time, authorized Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles for strikes inside Russia. That is according to Associated Press sources. And just a little bit more about this, I did want to share that with you as you're taking a look at some file video of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. President Biden, according to people familiar with this matter, has for the very first time authorized the use of U.S.-supplied long-range missiles by Ukraine to strike inside Russia. The decision is a major U.S. policy shift and comes as Biden is about to leave office, and President-elect Trump has pledged to limit American support for Ukraine and end the war as soon as possible.
The updated version of the document proposes that aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear weapon state, but with the participation or support of a nuclear weapon state, should be regarded as a joint attack on the Russian Federation. The conditions for Russia's transition to the use of nuclear weapons are also clearly defined. We will consider such a possibility as soon as we receive reliable information about a massive launch of aerospace attack means and their crossing of our state border, meaning strategic or tactical aircraft, cruise missiles, drones, hypersonic missiles, and other aircraft.
Беспилотники, гиперзвуковые и другие летательные аппараты. Являем за собой право.
We reserve the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression against Russia and Belarus as a member of the Union state.
Because of him, his policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad.
This is their direct involvement. And this, of course, would, in a significant way, change the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. It will mean that NATO countries, the United States and European countries, are at war with Russia.
In the updated version of the document, aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the support of a nuclear state, is proposed to be considered as their joint attack on Russia. Russia will also consider the possibility of using nuclear weapons when receiving reliable information about a massive launch of means of aerospace attack and their crossing of our state border. This includes strategic and tactical aircraft, as well as cruise missiles and drones, hypersonic and other delivery vehicles. Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in case of aggression, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, poses a critical threat.
We heard from Vladimir Putin multiple scenarios in which the rules and regulations governing how Russia can use its nuclear weapons will change. The first scenario is if a non-nuclear power attacks Russia with conventional arms but poses a grave or critical threat to Russia's sovereignty, the Russian leadership will be able to use nuclear weapons to neutralize that threat. If that non-nuclear power that is attacking Russia is aided, supplied, abetted by a nuclear power, then that nuclear power will be considered a party to this conflict. So Russia will be able to use nuclear weapons both on the non-nuclear power and the nuclear power.
The specter of a Trump return looms over this decision. Trump has previously criticized extensive U.S. military aid to Ukraine, favoring negotiations over further military engagements. European leaders worry that if Trump regains power, the transatlantic alliance could face challenges in maintaining consistent support for Ukraine. EU countries may need to increase their defense commitments and financial aid to compensate for a potentially reduced U.S. role. Despite the differing opinions, the European Parliament's resolution urging member states to lift restrictions on the use of Western weapons signals a broader consensus on supporting Ukraine militarily. Biden's approval for long-range strikes has put Trump in a precarious position. Trump will inherit the consequences of Ukraine's use of Atacms missiles. Should Ukraine strike significant Russian targets, Trump might face pressure to either escalate military support or reverse Biden's policies to avoid broader NATO entanglement.
Let me say a few things before I...
For Trump, this could mean navigating a complexity where America's role as a global leader collides with his America First commitments. Biden's decision leaves Trump with the unenviable task of addressing the fallout from a conflict that may grow more volatile.
Yeah, and Sam, it's worth noting there are now 50,000 Russian and North Korean troops poised to retake Kursk. No word on when this counteroffensive could potentially start. What are we hearing from Russia on this?
Well, Russia has, as you mentioned in your intro, indicated that there would likely be a sharp response against both the United States and against Ukraine for President Biden's decision. Russia, in the last day or so, has also refused a ceasefire proposal that didn't have a lot of legs that was put forward by the government of Turkey. And really what we're expecting is Russia to try to, of course, continue the war against Ukraine, but really wait out President Biden's time in office and try to convince the incoming Trump administration, and in particular Trump himself, that it's time to diminish U.S. security support for Ukraine and to lead to some kind of negotiated settlement. We do understand that the vice president-elect has at times voiced support for allowing Russia to keep the territory that it seized. So again, I would imagine that the Russian government is threatening the United States and Ukraine for this decision by the president, while ultimately waiting out President Biden's time in office, expecting a change in policy by President-elect Trump.
CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd, thank you so much.
We're going to look into the first names of Volodymyr and Vladimir. The Lord has put it into my heart to point out the irony of what is going on between Ukraine and Russia. So Vladimir, this name meaning, and we know names mean things in Scripture. Names have very important meanings. And as we look at Vladimir, you have a Slavic origin that means to rule with greatness, peaceful ruler, and ruler of the world. Now, if we go and look at Volodymyr, a Ukrainian name, means ruler of peace, ruler of the world. And we see the irony in what's going on now between Ukraine and Russia. As we know, the controllers of Biden, the deep state, we might say, has just informed him to let Volodymyr Zelensky use long-range missiles into Russia. And this is going to hinder Trump as he comes into office. It's very important to understand for President Trump to keep some of his high-appointed cabinet members close to him down at Mar-a-Lago, where there are plenty of rooms, plenty of space for all their security, because each one of these individuals that are coming up into Trump's cabinet will have security with them. And they will bring their security to add on to President Trump's security, beefing up the total security around Mar-a-Lago. And as we can see, Mar-a-Lago has 126 rooms, 62,500 square feet, built on 17 acres. There's plenty of room for at least 100 to 200 security service members protecting Donald J. Trump, our president-elect, and his selected cabinet members from harm, as the deep state will do everything in its power to see that President-elect Donald J. Trump is either hindered greatly when he takes the presidency or stop him completely from taking the president's seat at the White House. As President-elect Donald J. Trump said on Truth Social 56 times, Trump has said he wants to destroy the deep state, and over 76 million U.S. voters are with him on that plan. And remember, there's more power in prayer than all the arsenals of the world. So pray for your President-elect, Donald J. Trump.